Hello, it's Pete Moriarty here. Thank you so much for joining. Great to have you here. We are doing another community Q&A live roundup. And so if you are watching on the live, please say hello. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Or if you're watching the replay, you can drop in a hashtag repeat. And say hi from wherever you are. Great to have you here if you're joining us live. And remember, I will be responding to live questions as well. So if you're interested in dropping in any questions into the chit chat, please go ahead and do that. I've got a big roundup of as many comments as I can get to from the channel. I'm going to try and get through them all. If you have live questions as well, I'm focusing on Google Workspace, but I'm happy to answer any tech questions, any business questions that you have. Go ahead and drop them in the chat, and if I can answer them, then I will. So if you're new to the channel or you're new to the space, or this is the first time you've come across this video, my name is Pete Moriarty. I'm the founder of a company called itGenius, and we help small business owners all over the world systemize, organize, and scale using Google Workspace and a suite of other tools that integrate with the Google ecosystem. And we're all about helping small business owners play a bigger game. And so we're about helping you make sure you get the right tech in your business, and also making sure that you set your business up for success so that you can have more freedom, more profit, and a more successful life. And so hopefully our videos are helping you to do that, grow a better business. So I'd love to know what kind of business you're in. Maybe you can drop that in the comments. Let me know. Are you in manufacturing? Are you a bookkeeping business? Are you an events management company? Are you a sole trader? Are you in e-commerce? We've got businesses literally all over the world and in all different types of business industries. So great to have you here if you're joining us. So I've already got someone saying hello, Candace of Classic Connections Entertainment. Wonderful to have you here, all the way in Canada. Awesome. I'm assuming it's early morning there at the moment, or maybe you're on the East Coast. It's getting pretty late here at the moment in Australia. I'm on the Gold Coast, which is a great place to be, although it's a bit rainy at the moment. Wonderful. So Candace says, looking to do the majority of your work in Google Workspace and love your channel. Thank you so much, Candace. It's wonderful to have you here. If you want to drop your URL to your business in the comments too, this is always a good place to network, because my channel tends to attract business owners. And if you are a business owner who wants to promote your business and share your business with the world, this is a great place to do it. Wonderful. So let's. I'm gonna ask you a question right off the bat, Candace. Since you're here, I'll do the live questions before I jump into to everything else that we've got loaded up. So, accessibility consulting firm built by and for those with accessibility needs. That's excellent. Google would be the most accessible way to do the work, but it's proving not. So, if you do have some specific questions for me, Candace, then I would love to answer those for you. But maybe. We'll just see how we go along the way. So let's get into our first question here. So this is from Kuna Hospitality Group, and they've said they've migrated their mid-sized company to Google Workspace, but they've regretted it ever since. They're having some challenges, obviously, and so they're saying that how about the alternatives? There's some really big challenges that they're having here. So they've said that basic features like syncing a contact list are not working. Getting signatures working in Gmail required third-party apps. Sorting or saving messages are a challenge. My Drive doesn't let you share links to shared folders. Now, I read through this response and I wanted to respond to this one and share my thoughts on it. Now, number one, the biggest shift with moving to Google Workspace from other productivity tools like the Microsoft ecosystem is things are going to be different. We've been working with Google Workspace for over 10 years now. It started out very, very basic. It was literally just you'd get Google Docs and that was about it. Eventually you had Gmail, and the business version of Gmail allowed you to add your own domain name to Gmail. And then eventually other solutions got tied in, like Calendar and Google Drive, and it's now become quite a large suite of applications that small businesses can make use of. Now, unfortunately, Google, having not built this technology for 30, 40 years like the Microsoft ecosystem, are kind of starting from scratch. And because they decided to build in the browser, they didn't quite have all of the computing power and all of the let's say sophistication of locally built application technology that you would build if you were building for Windows or you were building for a Mac. And so Google, in building everything in the browser, which has many benefits in the way that the software is actually distributed and updated and maintained and looked after by Google. Some of the challenges or the downsides is you may not have every single button and bell and whistle that you see in the Microsoft ecosystem, or even some of the Mac apps that run locally on machines as well. And so the biggest shift that is required if you are an entrepreneur or a business owner who is responsible for the technology in your business and the technology strategy, or if you are an IT manager or IT person in a business and you're the person responsible for kind of like managing the IT strategy, the most important thing for you to know is that the Google way is a simpler way. And so you're probably not going to get all of the granular controls that you're used to if you're coming from a Microsoft ecosystem. And one of the examples that you gave here was, when you have a shared drive set up and you want to try and restrict access to a certain document within a subfolder, you don't have the option for that. That option just doesn't exist. And so all you can do is kind of like share a folder at the top level or at the root level, we call it in IT speak. And any files under that folder are automatically going to be shared with everyone who has access to the folder. And so that means that, no, unfortunately, you can't lock down a certain file inside Google Drive after a folder has been shared. So what are the downsides of that? Well, the example that this commenter gave was, well, if you have an HR folder and you have a folder for an employee and you have documents in there, but you want to restrict other employees from seeing the HR resources folder, then that's obviously not going to work. Maybe you have a folder or a shared drive set up and it has all of your client jobs, and you don't want clients to be able to see different jobs within that shared drive or see across to other clients' data. That's obviously not going to work either. And so the challenge for that particular challenge is you're missing out on the ability to kind of segment or set up walled gardens between different sets of files inside of Google Drive. So it requires, in that case in particular, a little bit of creative thinking. In the example where you have multiple client job folders, like often with accounting or bookkeeping firms, they will have multiple clients that they're working on and they want to have a collection of files for each one of their clients. Or maybe you're a construction business and you want a shared folder, shared space set up for each one of your jobs. And some of those files are potentially going to be then exposed and shared with the actual client who's involved in that job or a contractor who's involved in that job. What you want to do instead in those scenarios is to actually set up a separate shared drive per job or a separate shared drive per client. And what that allows you to do is set the permissions on a per job or a per client basis. In the example that Kuna Hospitality Group asked and said, if you're sharing HR documents or documents pertaining to someone's job role, then what you could do in that scenario is set up an individual shared file, shared drive per employee. That's one way of doing it. Or the second way of doing it is to set up one HR shared drive, and instead of sharing it with everyone and then restricting certain files, you share it with no one, and then you share individual files out on a file level basis. So it's kind of like approaching it from the opposite way. You lock down the parent level or the root level of the shared drive, and then you share individual files. Now, for something like HR documents, I probably wouldn't recommend that you share them too liberally. And what I would recommend is that you actually enable one of the options inside your Google Shared Drive settings, which will lock down that shared drive so anyone who has not been added to the shared drive can't actually access it. And what that means is it just kind of keeps it a little bit more locked down. I'm going to show you what that looks like in just one moment. But this feature is very useful to make sure there's a bit of extra security added to your shared drives. So I'm going to go into my Google Drive here and I'll zoom in so you can see it. And you can see here I've got lots of shared drives set up, and you can actually set up hundreds of shared drives. I believe there is a limit, but I can't remember what the limit is off the top of my head. I'm fairly certain it's in the hundreds. Maybe someone in the comments can help me out with that. But when we're in a shared drive here, for example, we have a team training drive for itGenius. And so this is where our team will access our training files, standard operating procedures. When we're onboarding a new employee, we will make sure that we have all the information for them inside a training file. I right-click and I go to Shared Drive Settings. And inside my Shared Drive settings, you can see here that we have unticked all three of these boxes. And these boxes allow you to basically restrict what someone can do if they are outside the shared drive or if they are outside your organization. So you can see here that anyone outside our organization cannot be added to a file. They just cannot be added at all. Number two, people who aren't members of the shared drive also can't be added to files. So that locks that down there. And then number three, viewers and commenters are unable to download, print, or copy any files. Now, our training drive is our IP for our company. This is our most precious data for the business. And so it's very important that we don't let any prying eyes who don't have, authority or the right access to this, get their eyes on it, basically. So this is the kind of thing that you want to lock down. Now, in the example where you have HR files and you want to maybe share somebody's individual files with them, but you don't want to share the whole drive, then maybe you would just, in that case, lock down just option 1 and option 3. So you'd maybe let people be added to files if they're outside the shared drive. Remember, I said lock down the parent of the shared drive, but then share out individual files from under it. But then you obviously want to restrict it so only people in your company can ever see files in that drive, and you may choose to not allow people to download, print, or copy. Okay, so I hope that's helpful in that particular scenario. But there were some other questions here as well. So group email inboxes not having an option for canned responses, email signatures are pretty basic. I would say yes. On a scaled business level, you do run into some challenges managing things like signatures for your teams. Yes, Google's shared mailbox is pretty darn basic. If you do need to use shared mailboxes, my recommendation is use Google's shared mailboxes, or delegated mailboxes they're called, only for the absolute basics, only if you need to get the absolute basics done, because it is pretty limited. If you want to do anything over the basics, I recommend you have a chat to our team and you have a chat about one of our products in our product suite called Hiver. Now, this product right here sits inside your Gmail, and inside your Gmail, it actually creates an additional set of shared labels. And those shared labels work between multiple team members. And so you can have multiple team members share labels and share emails that are put into labels. But you can actually use this as a full-blown ticketing system or customer service system. And what that lets you do is actually create your customer service KPIs, or SLAs, we call them in the IT world, which is service level agreements. But basically, you can set performance metrics around how quickly your team respond to customer service emails. What are the satisfaction scores? Because it's got built-in customer satisfaction, thumbs up, thumbs down kind of responses. You get all kinds of, graphs and insights and data on how your team are performing in responding to customers. But also, and these are the best features, is when an email comes in, you can assign it to someone. You can, of course, have canned responses. You can put internal notes on the tickets that come in as well. And so what this does is it basically creates your customer service communication system interface between you and your clients. Now, that runs on top of your Google Workspace mailboxes. And there's obviously a license fee for that. We're a global partner for Hiver, so we'll help you have a test drive if you're interested in it for your business. And then, of course, if you want to roll it out, then our team are there to help you out as well. Okay, so I want to make sure I've got all your questions answered. Cool. All right. Syncing a contact list with other users. Google have brought out some features around that. I believe you can create some sharing now within Google Contacts, but it's still not amazing. There are some third-party tools for sharing mailboxes, and so there are options. There are options for sharing mailboxes there. Okay, we've got a question that's come through from Stevie. Thanks for joining us, Stevie. Will Google add an easy way to set out of office settings for other users and users that have left the business or had a suspended account created? Great question, Stevie. Thanks for asking that, and thanks for joining us live. I don't know if Google are going to create an admin level of managing other users' autoresponders as a particular tool. What I do know is for very, very geeky users, and I don't know if you fall into this bucket or not, but for very geeky users, there is actually a Google Admin API. And there is a command line which allows you to access the Google Workspace admin via command line. And so there are ways of setting features like autoresponders on and off via that API tool. Now, I don't know if you can set them on or off for sure myself. That I'm not sure about. But the second part of your question is really interesting to me, and that is users that have left the business and you've suspended their account. Now, when you suspend somebody's account inside Google Workspace, the suspended account still exists, all the data still stays there, but as far as the outside world is concerned, effectively the account stops existing. And so what that means is people will get bounce backs. And so effectively, it immediately stops working as soon as you suspend it. Now, what we recommend, and this is what we teach inside our bootcamp, is that you actually have a clear offboarding process for your staff. And so when a team member is offboarded, what you want to do is, yes, first suspend their account, but very quickly migrate and merge their data into a shared account. Now, we call this account our archive account, and I'm going to show you what that looks like inside our Google Workspace here. Let me open up my admin panel. And so here inside my admin panel, I'm going to open up my users, and inside our users, you'll see here we've got everyone in our company. And then we have this special user here called itGenius Archive. And the itGenius Archive is basically the dumping ground for all of the data for each user that has left our company. So every time a user has left our company, we dump their data into the archive data bucket. So that's where we migrate it. Now, we use special third-party tools for that are a bit more efficient than Google's built-in migration tool, because that can be a bit buggy sometimes and doesn't always move over all of the data. And if you're a concierge member of ours, we actually do this all for you. So you just drop us a message on chat and say, hey, Bob's finishing up on Friday, and at Friday 5 p.m., we just go through our offboarding checklist. But I'm going to give you what that offboarding checklist is. So if you want to do it yourself, you can absolutely do it yourself. And so the offboarding checklist is, number one, you suspend the account. Number two, you move the data over into your bucket account. Number three, you reroute the alias to another user who would be most appropriate to receive that person's email. And so in that scenario, you don't necessarily need an auto response to go back. If someone's emailed that user and they no longer exist, the email would just go to the next person who would be picking up that email. Now, if you did want to create an autoresponder, that would be totally fine. What I would probably do then is set that user as an alias for the archive bucket. That would probably be the best place to send them. And then on the archive bucket, you would just have a general autoresponder, which would go out to any email that got sent to any one of the aliases assigned to that bucket. And you would say, hi, you have emailed a user who is no longer active at this company. Your email has not been received. I don't know. What would you say in something like that? Your email's not been received and it's not going to be read. Please send it to someone else. I don't know. To me, that doesn't seem like the right thing to do. I would just always, on the basis of good customer service, have that person's email forwarded to one of your central mailboxes that actually is monitored. So whether that's your sales@yourcompany.com or info@yourcompany.com or contact@yourcompany.com, whatever the central mailbox is where your general customer service inquiries go, that would be my recommendation in where you send that. Cool. Thank you very much for the question. Okay, so we have a question this is from Candace. I have a quadriplegic social worker as a business partner, and Google Meet hijacks her microphone, and she can't use any of her accessibility hardware. She uses Apple products. She can't leave on her own. Okay, I'm going to double check if there's a second part to this question. Okay, cool. So if I forget to manually kick her out and end the call, she's stuck, unable to navigate anything. Oh, I see. And that's because Meet has hijacked things. Interesting. I don't know the specifics of what computer hardware this person is using. or how that might be impacting what's actually going on there. But what I can say is that Google have just released, in about the last 3 to 4 weeks, I would say, a pretty cool feature which addresses this. And so if everyone in a meeting has actually left the meeting and you're the last person in a meeting, it'll have a countdown. I think it's about 2 or 3 minutes of idle time. And if you're in a meeting by yourself for 2 to 3 minutes, it will actually just kick you out of the meeting. And so that's a pretty cool feature, because Google have worked out that sometimes people will finish a meeting and, I don't know, maybe they just close their laptop lid, or maybe they walk away from their computer and they make a cup of tea, and the meeting could still be recording, might still be being recorded. And then, of course, they're working from home, they take their pants off to have a shower, and all of a sudden it gets very embarrassing. And so Google have created that new feature, which is going to kick it out. Now, in this particular scenario, if you have someone who is unable to click anything and they're stuck waiting there for 3 minutes, that's not an ideal situation. But I guess that's better than being completely stuck for potentially longer than 3 minutes. If there's any other specifics that we may be able to help with, please send a message through to our support team, and maybe there's some third-party software that in that specific scenario, there would be a way to exit with like a keystroke command or some other kind of trigger that might be able to help with that. Okay, so we have another question here I'm going to try and do my absolute best with your name, Ingeborg. I hope that's correct. Please forgive me if not. When I have started Google Chat, how do I let my contact people add me to their room or to their contact list? Okay, great question. So Google Chat is now everywhere. It exists inside our Gmail. It exists inside a dedicated Google Chat as well. And so Google Chat, I like to access it from the dedicated chat window. And so to access that, you can see here in my Chrome box, mail.google.com/chat will actually bring it up in a dedicated window. Or if you're in your Gmail, you can see you can just click on the 3 lines. Oh, does that still do it on the 3 lines? I'm not sure if it does. No, I think you might have to go there yourself. But that's the URL, mail.google.com/chat. I may even drop that in the chat for those that are on the live stream. Oh, we're going all the way to Timbuktu because I've got my screen shared. Okay. So here I am in my chat, and it's always lovely to log into my chat and see that our customer service score is at 98.53%. This is from our Hiver app, by the way, on a rolling 90 days. Great to see that from our operations manager. But anyone can add someone to a chat pretty simply. You just click on the plus button here. So you just click start a chat, and then you type somebody's email address. Now, that person needs to have a Gmail account or a Google Workspace account. You can't send it to any old Microsoft account, unfortunately. If you do, I suspect they would receive some kind of invitation to sign up for a Gmail account, and then they may be able to join it. I can't remember off the top of my head if you can still join with a non-Google account like you could with Hangouts in the old days. But for best practice, you want to make sure they're either on Google Workspace or they have a Gmail account, and you can just go ahead and add them. Now, if that person wants to add somebody to a space, it's the same kind of thing. So you just click on the plus button, and what was formerly called rooms is now called spaces. And then when you create a space, it's the same process again. You set up a name for the space, and then from there, you can start typing someone's email address, and you can go ahead and add them to the space. So I hope that has answered the question for you. That's pretty straightforward. Contact lists will automatically be generated in Gmail by default. So Gmail's default setting is to actually automatically capture anyone you have emailed back and forward and add them to your contact list. And so it's always basically scooping up emails and adding them to your contacts. And so if you go into your Gmail and then your contacts, you'll see all the contacts that are there, and you should be able to start inviting people to chat from there. Okay, so we have, here we go. Cool. So unfair question from Stevie. Let's see. Do you know when Google Drive will offer regions and data governance for the AU region? currently it stores data in any of their data centers. Great question, Stevie. I do not know that personally. If I did know and couldn't tell you, I would say I can't tell you, but I don't know. What I will say, though, is depending on what industry you're in, and I've had many discussions with financial services industry, with legal industry, with healthcare industry, what most people are concerned about when they ask this question is, am I complying with the Australian privacy principles laws? Now, hashtag I'm not a lawyer, hashtag this is not legal advice. But what most people are curious to know is, can I store patient records? Can I store financial information? Can I store people's Medicare numbers? Can I store people's credit card numbers in Google Drive or in Google Documents if that data is in locations outside of Australia? And hashtag I'm not a lawyer, but from all of my research and from the advice that we have received, it's absolutely fine and completely compliant to store data in the Google ecosystem, even though the data centers are not necessarily in Australia. Now, the confusion with that, with the Australian privacy principles, is that typically people think, oh, well, it's got to stay in Australia because that is the regulation. But I've read the Act and I've read all of the regulations, and what they actually say is that you need to take reasonable steps to maintain that data and reasonable steps to protect the data of your customers. Now, this generally applies globally. If you're in Europe, you've got GDPR. If you're in the US, I cannot remember off the top of my head the Privacy Act that you're bound by. But generally, these principles apply globally. But specifically for Australia and the Australian privacy principles, what it means is that you have to make sure that you're doing your best to protect the data, meaning you have data retention policies and data protection policies in place. I'll circle back to that. Number two, any third-party processors or anyone who is helping to store the data on your behalf, you need to make sure that they are responsible parties as well. i.e., if you are relying on Google to either transmit or store or do something with the data, some kind of processing, which they are by you putting it in a Google Sheet or you putting it in a file in Google Drive, then you need to ensure that they have the correct, let's say, checks and balances in place. And anywhere in transit as well. And so, you can't just leave it on a USB stick or something like that. You are still responsible. Now, in Australia, under the Australian privacy principles, if you are an organisation with more than 2 million Australian dollars in revenue, you are bound by these rules, and you need to basically submit notice of any breaches to the Australian Information Commissioner. And they are basically the information police, and you have to declare, hey, I've had a data breach and customers' information or people's personal information has been shared. And whether they haul you off to jail or whatever consequences you have, that's then on you. But if you are a smaller business, less than $2 million of revenue, and in certain industries, you may also have these restrictions apply to you as well. Now, does that mean that you can go and put all of your data and all of your records in Google Drive straight away? Well, not necessarily. And that's why I say get your own advice on this, which is industry specific. Because if you're, for example, a financial institution or you're dealing with financial institutions, like maybe you're a finance broker, some organizations that you deal with will have their own policy, and some of them will say the data must be in Australia. For example, some Australian banks and some Australian insurance agents will say, or underwriters will say, the data must be in Australia, full stop. And it's kind of like wet signatures versus digital signatures. Digital signatures have been upheld in the Supreme Court, in the High Court of Australia, or the Federal Court, whichever the highest court is that we have here. Yet, some or most banks still require a wet signature because it's just their policy. So you've got to check your policies. Now, I said I was going to circle back to you making sure that you protect data inside your Google account. And here's where it comes down to Google Workspace, and it becomes very important. Now, for you to ensure that you are complying with a rule like this, the general consensus is that you need to be making every effort available to you to protect the data of your customers, protect their personal information, protect any financial information, protect any Medicare card numbers or anything of the sorts. Now, Google Workspace has some pretty cool tools built in. You can go into the admin panel and you can tick a couple of boxes, and that will actually allow you to switch on HIPAA certifications and a bunch of US-based protocols, or there is the GDPR protocol for Europe. If you go in and tick those, excuse me, if you go in and tick those compliance measures inside your administration panel, it's going to switch on a bunch of things. But there is also an implementation checklist which will allow you to go even further. And that is enabling some of the enterprise features like data loss prevention. Now, data loss prevention is our strong recommendation for any business in the legal, financial services, or healthcare industries, and insurance as well. I would extend it to there as well. And what data loss prevention allows you to do is set certain policies and protocols for how data is handled and how potential data breaches can be stopped in their tracks inside Google Workspace. The awesome thing about DLP, for short, is that if one of your team members accidentally cuts and pastes a customer's credit card number or their Medicare number, or if you're in the US, a social security number into an email, and they hit send on that email will be quarantined before it even goes out of your business. Pretty cool, huh? It will also give you reports on any of those numbers that are maybe stored in plain text in documents. It's not compliant in most places to have credit card numbers stored in plain text. They should be either tokenized or they should be, obfuscated in some way. And so the data loss prevention tools, which are only available in the enterprise plans for Google Workspace, are highly recommended for those working in those industries, or anyone in Australia, at least. If you're doing more than $2 million a year in revenue, then you have more stringent rules applied to you in how you handle your customers' personal information and data. And remember that it may just be first name, last name, and date of birth that is personal information that could potentially constitute a breach that needs to be a reportable breach. My recommendation is to get your own advice on how your business needs to be protected from a legal standpoint. So talk to your consultants about that. But for the technical implementation, well, we know what we're doing with that. If you'd like some help from our company, itGenius, we've done this for probably 40 or 50 organizations, mostly in the healthcare industry, to implement data loss prevention, to implement third-party backup tools so the data is securely encrypted outside of Google's ecosystem as well. So you can tick all the boxes and say, hey, I have done absolutely everything that I can to protect my customers' data. And then, should the information commissioner come after you if there is some kind of data breach, or you have to make an insurance claim to your cyber insurance that you've had a data breach, that you can show, hey, I've done everything, and here's the checklist that itGenius went through to implement all of the security features available to me in the Google Workspace ecosystem. Great question. I love that one. All right. Cool. We have a viewer from Ireland, Crosshaven Computers. I suspected we'd get some people from Europe, considering the time. Thank you very much. Great to have you here. Okay, cool. Loving the questions. Please keep them rolling. If you're on the live stream, please say hi. Oh, wonderful. I've got a question. Here from you, Crosshaven. Here we go. Some of my customers' accountants say they need Excel as they are power users. How true is that? Great question. I love the accountants who love their Excel. They're our favorites. Look, this has been the question for the ages. Can you get done in Google Sheets what the CFO sitting in the corner, the data nerd sitting in the corner, sorry, I love you guys, can do in Excel? And the answer is it's a bit complicated. For most people in an organization, Google Sheets will 100% service their needs for anything that they need to do in the spreadsheet world. You've got now in Google Sheets pivot tables, VLOOKUPs, you can import ranges from different sheets, you can import live financial market data. There's all kinds of amazing things you can do. The graphs live update, you can have graphs automatically linked into your Google Slides presentation. So when you change something in the sheet, it's automatically there. You can do all kinds of really groovy things inside of Google Sheets. But every now and again, there are some limitations. For example, if you have a data set and you have thousands or tens of thousands of rows, Google Sheets can start to slow down a little. Now, there are some smart ways of handling that data, like using filter views, and you can look those up. Filter views are a way of culling down the data, but not completely filtering all the data for everyone that's accessing the sheet. they're a very good way of working with them. But the reality is that sometimes they do slow down if you're working with a large data set. So that would be one reason why you would potentially still work in the Microsoft world. Now, the next one that people tend to ask about is macros. Obviously, there is a large ecosystem of macros for Microsoft Excel, and what that allows you to do is get your data manipulated in ways that you can't just do on your own, or would be a little bit challenging for you to have to do manually. Well, Google Sheets now actually includes macros. You may not know that, but there are macros available inside your Google Sheets. So I may as well show you guys what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead to my computer here. And if you don't know this shortcut yet, if you go to sheet.new, it's going to automatically open up a new spreadsheet for you. Actually, it would be smarter for me to open up a demo sheet. Let me see if I've got one of those in Google Drive. I'm pretty sure I do, because then I'll actually have some data available to show you. Here we go. Here's my demo folder. All right, let's go. Here we go. Yeah, this is the one I like to use. All right. Cool. So we've got a little bit of data here in our sheet, and one of the things that I really like about this is you can actually use the Explore button in the lower right-hand corner, and the Explore button is going to use Google's AI to automatically suggest graphs and charts and other things to visualize your data and make it a little bit smarter. Now, from time to time, if I select a bunch of different data, it will actually give me a suggested pivot table. It doesn't look like it's going to do it for me today, but that's okay. Here's one of the things that usually gets people over the line when they're hardcore Excel users, and that is that you can actually start asking questions of your data in natural language, and Google will actually answer that from the Explore tab here, which is pretty cool. So I should be able to ask something like average of sales, and let's see if it's going to pull that up. Here we go. Yeah, great. So it's automatically gone to the sales column, and it's found the average of the sales just from my natural language question there. And from there, it's actually going to show me the formula of how to find that. So if I actually wanted to work out that formula myself, then I could use that formula, which is pretty cool. And I can give Google a thumbs up. Good, Google. Well done. Thank you very much for helping me out with that. Now, the thing that I find the most exciting and fascinating about this is, number one, Google's doing some of the work for us, which is really great. And it's just going to get easier and easier and easier for us to manipulate our data, because Google are going to be manipulating it for us. But what I can see is very, very soon around the corner, we will just be able to talk to our spreadsheets, just like the movie Minority Report, and they will pop up with the answers for us. Just like right now, I can turn around and start talking to my speaker and my assistant over there. It's going to pop up and automatically just give me answers and take actions. I'll bet the business, everything that's coming to our spreadsheets. And so that's what's really exciting to me. Now, are there still some things that you can do inside of Excel that you cannot yet do inside of Google Sheets? I'm sure there's one or two. But the formula library, the macros, the integrations, the Google scripts that you can integrate, the third-party add-ons that you can add, the overwhelming ecosystem of power that you have with Google Sheets, in my opinion, far outstrips what you can do in Excel. But there are some people who've been using the same app for 15 years and they just want to keep using it. If you are the IT administrator and you're responsible for software choices across a business, sometimes it's okay to keep one or two people happy and let them keep that Office subscription. But for everybody else, have a policy that they don't use Excel. That's my thoughts on that. But thank you very much for answering the question. All right, so we've got some feedback here. I've never used Excel. I'm mulling if there's a way to integrate forms to streamline doing numbers and financial stuff. Creative entrepreneur and not an accountant. Great question. Using forms is actually one of my favorite uses for Sheets, because when you use a Google form, you can actually have a Google form linked to a Google Sheet, and you can have structured data appearing into your sheet. And I've got some of that in my demo folder right here. And so you can see here I've got a form, and that form actually shows up into the sheet here. So, it looks like that one might actually be empty. Here we go. Okay, so I've got a list of form responses here. I'm just going to see if I can find the actual form. Where's my form? Okay, wonderful. So here we have a form, and this is a very simple, like, end of day business report. So what's the total amount of cash in the business minus the total amount of bills? So maybe I'll say 10,000 was left over, and new number of entries to the database. So this looks like a marketing KPI. So maybe I'll say there are 100 new entries in the database. I'm going to hit the submit button. And every time this form is submitted, I hope I found the right spreadsheet. Ta-da! There we go. Cool. So it's automatically put that data into there, and you can see we actually have a graph which is running here. The graph's gone a little bit weird, but you can see here that data is being automatically updated on a graph. And so imagine this: you're a small business owner. You have the team that you want to be doing a daily report on their numbers. Maybe it's a sales manager who's not particularly great with, keeping their paperwork up to date, or maybe it's, like a general. You're the CEO, or you're the founder, and you have a general manager, and you want them to just, give you a daily report of the numbers. This is a great way of getting data into a structured table, and when it's in a structured table, you can create great-looking graphs. And when you have graphs like that, you can put them up on a TV. And you can have them live in the office, and have all your KPIs and numbers in a rudimentary kind of dashboard. There are more sophisticated ways of doing that using Google's tools like Google Data Studio, and in our concierge program, we will actually build custom Data Studio dashboards for your business. But if you just want to start out with the absolute basics, a form and a spreadsheet and a graph, they're live updating. Stick it on a TV. Use a Chromecast if you have to, and then automatically you've got a basic dashboard for your business, which is pretty cool. All right, great question. Thank you for asking that. Okay. All right. Wonderful. Grids and values freak me out. Okay, cool. So Savage has asked a question: can you customize the look and feel of Google Forms, or are they just an out-of-the-box Google style? Great question. There is actually a decent amount of customization available now, which is pretty cool inside a form. So this is a most basic form here. Comes, I don't know why the default color is purple. I guess because that's the color of the app, right? Sheets are green, docs are blue. They picked purple for forms. But what I like about forms is I can customize a theme here using different colors and whatnot. So if I want to go for an orange theme, I can switch to an orange theme. But if I choose an image, so let's go ahead and pick. Maybe I'll even have one of my branded images here somewhere. Oh, here we go. We've got the itGenius drift car. Let's put that in. All right, cool. So I'm going to stick that on there. It should pick up the colors from that image. See if it does it. There we go. See, did you notice that changed? It didn't change it much, so it's a bit hard to see. But it actually changed the colors to be a little more pleasing to the eye, based on the image that's there, which is pretty cool. So there we go. I can make it even more blue if I wish. So there's basic customization available for your Google Forms. And then how they show up on the page is going to show up. Now you can't get crazy with CSS and HTML styles or anything like that, but you can at least get the basics done, which is pretty good. All right, hopefully that one was helpful. Okay, wonderful. All right, thanks, Candace, for your comments. Great. Do I use or recommend AppSheet? Good question. There are so many ways of getting more out of the Google ecosystem. There's AppScript, AppSheet. There was I can't remember what it was called. There was App Maker. That one was shut down eventually. and then you can just cut code straight to the APIs. My recommendation is, if you're a small business owner, and by that I mean you have less than 20 employees, it's not your job to touch any of these technical tools. Even if you have the skills, it's still not your job. It's somebody else's job. That should be delegated, outsourced, or basically given to someone else. What my recommendation is if you have a business process that you're not able to get done within the constraints of your skills with Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Forms, and the apps that you stumble across in the marketplace to connect them together and get them talking to each other, draw it out on a piece of paper, or even better, using the Jamboard app. And if you haven't come across that yet, it's jamboard.google.com, and you can draw on your phone or your iPad or in the browser if you want, and share that with our team at itGenius, and we will be able to help you architect a business process that would be appropriate either inside Google Workspace, or we may be able to recommend a third-party tool to help you with that process. That would be my recommendation, rather than jumping into the technical side of things. Okay, cool. So got my first computer in 2003, not a tech geek. Yes, correct. Look, there is certainly a thinking that if it's possible, a computer can do it. That's correct. As entrepreneurs, it's very important that we manage our resources. One of our resources is time. One of our resources is money, and there is a very delicate balance when it comes to tech on how much to invest and what kind of return on that investment we get. What are the results that we're going to get from that return on investment? And I've seen many business owners who are not skilled at leading IT projects take on third-party, customized, full-stack development projects that they are effectively project managing. And I would not even have the capability of doing that. And I've been doing tech stuff for 20 years. I was 11 years old when I was building my first computers, and I was consulting from 15 onwards. It was 18 years I've been consulting. And I still wouldn't take on a project like that personally. And I think that really says something, that it's just not appropriate for small business owners to be trying to be a tech manager, unless that is your life passion, to actually run IT projects. And then by all means go ahead. All right. Okay. YT Media, thank you for joining us. YT Media's question is, after buying the 2 terabyte Google Workspace subscription, can we switch to a higher plan if needed in the future? Yes, you can always switch up and down, unless you are on some kind of discounted commitment with Google. So if you have lots of users, if you've got more than 100 employees in the business, even if you've got more than 50, it makes sense to reach out to our team and ask if there are any discounts available for your region, because Google often have discounts on plans for certain levels of commitment. That would be the only time that you're not able to be flexible with your plan and go up or down and switch and change your storage needs and your plan needs. But thank you for the question. All right, wonderful. I'm going to go on to our next question here. Okay, we have a question from Chad. Google Chat is really unintuitive. I just want a video call with my buddy using my phone, and I can't see any way to start a video call like you could in Hangouts. Great question, Chad. This is something that bugs me as well. Now, it's been a long time since Google started Google Hangouts, had multiple iterations of Google Hangouts, and eventually decided, nope, screw it. We're going to stop working on Hangouts, and we're just going to rebuild Google Meet as a brand new app. Now, in that no man's land, which was about 3 years where they had both apps running simultaneously, bit by bit, Google slowly started bringing features from Google Hangouts over to Google Meet. And I think they've brought every single feature from the old classic Hangouts over to Meet, except the ability to dial. And that was one of the best features. You could ring someone like a phone using Hangouts. And what was really great about that was it gave you the ability to buzz someone and interrupt them. Now, we have a very high profile, multi-billion-dollar client based in Australia, whom I cannot mention, who decked out a number of meeting rooms with Google Meet and Google hardware. Now, Google make excellent hardware that you can put in a meeting room, and in that meeting room, you can click a button, automatically join a meeting. And, of course, you've got shared calendars, which have scheduled all the meetings in the meeting rooms. And that Google Hangouts, it used to be called Google Hangouts Meet. I think it's just called Google Meet hardware now. That hardware gives you a full conference room experience using Google Meet. And this particular high-profile client and high-profile user of Google Workspace relied on the ability to call because they needed to call multiple global offices, and they needed them to be able to actually ring in different offices. Or if someone had not joined the meeting, if they'd forgotten to join the meeting, they wanted to type in that person's name and have their phone ring so that person could actually be belled to then click one button and jump into the meeting. And it was that feature was a contributing factor to that multi-billion-dollar company removing literally hundreds of meeting devices and switching over to Zoom rooms instead. Anyway, I digress. This is a feature that Google have said they are actually going to bring back. Now, I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but I have faith that the ability to dial someone and have them be buzzed into a meeting will be coming back to Google Meet. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I do think it has something to do with Google bringing Google Meet and Google Duo, which is their consumer video calling service, together, which they've announced in the last couple of months. And so Google Meet and Google Duo are becoming one, and I don't think they would allow their consumers to lose such a large feature without expecting some kind of uproar. And so I expect that's going to be coming through pretty quickly. So thank you very much for the question, Chad. Okay, we have another question here from Melanie, and Melanie asks, my Google Workspace has been suspended, submitted a review which is in progress, but my business is suffering in the meantime. My business email was inundated with spam, never from the same address. How can I fix this and update and reinstate my Google search info? Melanie, sorry to hear that your Google account is switched off right now and not working. That sounds pretty serious. Now, obviously, first step is to either get in touch with Google support directly or get in touch with our Platinum support team at itGenius. We are business consultants as well as providing professional IT support for Google Workspace. So we can help you out with business processes and recommending apps and other bits and pieces that Google support don't. Now, fundamentally, you want to make sure that your mail flow for your business is protected with your DNS settings. Now, DNS gets a bit scary for business owners because it's very technical and it's not really the kind of thing that you should be doing yourself. But it is important that you have someone who knows what they're doing, getting it set up correctly for you. Now, we've actually created a DNS guide here at itGenius. There's a 30-minute guide on our actual YouTube channel, and that actually shows you exactly how you should be configuring DNS correctly. And so you should have someone who knows what they're doing this. I'm not suggesting you do it as a business owner. I'm suggesting you have someone who knows what they're doing do this and go through this guide and set up DNS correctly. Now, here's some of the features that you need to set up. You need to set up DMARC, you need to set up DKIM, you need to set up your SPF, and these are all basically DNS protocols that make sure that people can't spam you and you can't spam other people. Now, that's all explained in that video that I just opened up there on our website, or you can search our channel for DNS and you'll find the guide there as well. But if right now your account is actually suspended and you're unable to access your account, well, the easiest way to get access to that is by either contacting Google support or working with itGenius support. We should be able to get your account switched on pretty much straight away. Now, if you're not yet a customer of itGenius or you don't yet have your billing subscribed through itGenius, this is the exact kind of scenario which would make sense for you to transfer your billing to us. Now, it doesn't cost you any extra to do that. You basically get access to the same street prices that Google give, or sometimes even better because we get access to off-market discounts from time to time. But what does happen is we have the ability to get into the back-end administration of your account, even if you are locked out. And let me tell you, we have over 25,000 users under management. We have thousands of businesses that we look after all over the world. And it always happens. It always happens at Friday afternoon at 6 p.m. as well. But we have customers, and it always seems to be at least one or two a month, who get locked out of their account for some reason, whether it's spamming, whether something got messed up, whether their partner and business partner is divorcing them and decided to lock them out of the admin account. That happens at least once a quarter. these things happen. And sometimes you get locked out of your account. Being able to pick up the phone, call itGenius and say, hey, I've been locked out of my account. Our team have an identity verification process, of course, to make sure it's actually you. But then they can actually, with one button, get you access to your super administrator again in your Google Workspace account without having to go to the Google support queues and try and find your way through that. Now, interestingly, from time to time, you'll call Google support and try and get access to your account. And what they'll actually do is they'll say, hey, can you just log into your admin panel and give us the 6-digit support code? Which you can't because you're locked out. So, you can run into a problem. So we've got other ways of verifying who you are, text messages and phone numbers and whatnot. And so that will help you have a second layer of protection just in case something does happen. And let me tell you, you never think about that until you've got 20 employees who can't work because your Google account's been shut down and no one can get into Drive and no one can get into email, and customers are calling you wondering what's going on, but you can't even send an email out to your customers because you can't get into your email. If you don't want that nightmare, take advantage of our transfer in offer. It should be linked on any of the videos under our channel. Otherwise, go to our channel homepage, click on the links, and you'll get access to that there. Okay, let's move on to our next one. So Krishna has said that a major drawback for me in Google Meet is we have two major email providers, Microsoft and Google. For various reasons, people choose different providers, but you may have to interact with someone outside your organization from time to time, and it becomes difficult because you can't talk to someone who's on the other kind of system, right? And, I get this challenge. We work with different businesses all over the world. Thankfully, most people are interested in making the switch to Google in our line of work. But, from time to time, we talk to our accountant or we talk to our lawyers or someone else who's using the Microsoft ecosystem. And that can really be a challenge. Now, I could talk about this for probably hours, talking about, how you manage documents, how you manage sharing things in Google Drive. But I want to first address your specific question, which is around chat and access to different meeting styles as well. Now, when the pandemic happened, everybody switched to Google Zoom and just basically went home and worked the same way they'd always been working, except they switched to doing it online on Zoom. So you can be pretty safe that any country, any company is going to be able to work with Zoom, right, when you're doing meetings. But there's something pretty cool about Google Meet, and that's that they run in the browser pretty much on any machine. So if you're using Safari or Firefox or Chrome or even Internet Explorer, it's going to work. And so you can just drop someone a Google Meet URL. And with that Google Meet URL, bang, they can be straight into the meeting. Super simple, no messing around. So that's one of the advantages of using Google Meet is for the most part, pretty much anyone can join. Now, if you've got someone who is, maybe of elderly demographic, and the first time they log into Meet, they've got to, allow access to the microphone, allow access to the video camera, and all those kind of like first setup things. It can be a little bit cumbersome. And so if you are, for example, a recruitment business and, you're connecting with new people all the time and they're not regular contacts, then you may want to choose to err on the side of using something that more people have access to, like Zoom. But there are some pretty big advantages to going all Google in your business, and that's why we thoroughly encourage it. When you have access to Google Meet, you can click one button and hit record, and it's automatically going to pop that recording into your Google Drive folder. Zoom doesn't do that. Every time you close Zoom, and it's got to render the recordings, and then you've got to remember to upload them, and it just turns into a bit of a mess. For your staff, are they going to remember to upload them every single time? You don't even know. Are you backing up their local computers if they're not Chromebooks? You don't even know. And so my recommendation is, if you can get away with it, to persist with using Google Meet. Now, if you're in the kind of industry where people are using their mobile phones all the time and they've got to download a different app, well, that might get a little bit more challenging. And so in that case, you may choose to err on the side of something that's, more, kind of user-friendly because people have the familiarity factor with it. But especially for your internal meetings, and especially for any contractors or suppliers or anyone you work with regularly, my strong recommendation is that you have a firm policy right across your company that everyone uses Google's tools. And that means using Google Meet, and that means using Google Chat as well. That, of course, means using the Google document format for all of the documents as well. And that gives you consistency, but it also gives you the power of all of the integrations between the Google world. When you have data sitting in a spreadsheet and you can automatically have your graph show up inside, a Google Slides, presentation. When you have a Google space set up and everyone's chatting away in the space, and you can click one button and drop a link to a Google Meet and everyone can jump straight into that. when you have your out of office set up on your calendar, if everyone's using Google Calendar and you go to chat to someone using Google Chat, it's going to show you and say, hey, this person's out of office today. So you're sending them a message, but they're not going to get it. Slack can't do that. Zoom can't automatically, my G word is going off in the background there. Slack can't do that. You can't automatically do that with, using Zoom. Your meeting recordings are not going to go into your Google Drive. So if you want to do everything simple and scalable, my recommendation is that you do it Google. And I know it is a bit of a pain. From time to time, you're going to have customers or you're going to have suppliers who, are going to be doing things on a different system. Thankfully, most people in the world do have a Gmail account. And so if you've got, for example, a set of contractors and those contractors need access to a Google Drive folder, or you want to put all your contractors into one chat room, most people are going to have a Gmail account, and you can add them to one security group inside your Google admin. And in that security group, then you can add them to the space, and that will give them access to it. It's not a perfect system, but that's about the best that you can do. All right, the questions are flowing through. Thank you very much for everyone who is giving questions and comments. So Savage asks, at the moment we have 2 Google Workspaces, effectively paying twice because we went under a company rebrand. Is there a way to transfer Google Drive data from one to another? This is one of those times where I say, I wish you called us earlier. There are ways of actually changing the primary domain and rebranding a Google Workspace account. There are particular methods to do that to make sure that there are no downtime on any emails and no users get locked out and nothing goes wrong. So if you're a medium to large size organization and you want to do that, it's best to have a chat to our support team to help facilitate the process. But to answer the question here from this person, Savage, you actually can merge the data from 2 Workspace accounts into one. Or if you need to merge from 1 into 2, you can also do that as well. And that's our bread and butter at itGenius. We do that all week, all day. We've done that for literally thousands of projects and thousands of companies. And so if you need to merge that data together, it's probably best to have a chat to our support team at itGenius, and we'll take you through how to do that. Now, if you want to go and Google around, there are migration tools available on the internet to go and do it. But like everything techie in business, it's probably better for you to outsource to someone who's done it 1,000 times before, who can do it for a very, very reasonable and affordable rate. We're one of the most affordable companies globally who does this, and we will make sure that you get 100% data integrity in the data that is moved across. There won't be mistakes, there won't be downtime, and you won't end up with a mess. Because if you do get it wrong, the worst case scenario is you end up with double ups of files in your Google Drive and people can't find things, and someone's working on one version of a document in the new domain, but someone's still working on the old domain. You want to make sure that you get that process correct, particularly if you've got staff that you want to be productive and you don't want any risk at all of losing data during the process. So jump on one of the links below this video and have a chat to our team, and we'll be happy to help review your project and help out with that. We had one company that came to us recently who had about, I think, 200 or 300 odd employees, but they had about 10 brands. And they were splitting up each one of those brands and splitting them up into different companies and different organizations. And our team worked with them to, one by one, split up each one of those brands into separate accounts. Project all went flawlessly. It did take about 6 months because they wanted to do it in stages, but our team were able to do that. We had another organization that had thousands of users. They were a large public company in Australia, which went into liquidation. And the liquidators called us and said, hey, I wish I could say names because they're pretty cool companies, but another prominent business person has bought this company brand out of receivership, and they have decided to just take the brand but not take any of the data. The liquidators need to keep the old data. Can you please split apart this account with thousands and thousands of users? And so we were awarded the contract to do that job and actually split apart all of that data so the new owner could take the brand but not take the data. Anyway, good times in Google migrations land. Okay, cool. You got left with the mess. That happens sometimes. Yeah, that happens sometimes. Okay, cool. All right, we got a question here from Crosshaven Computers. I need to migrate 80 gigs of mail from a Google Workspace account in Outlook. All right, and I want to archive it to another G Suite account under the same domain. look, that's absolutely fine. If you have all of that data sitting in local PST files, they're called, which are the local Outlook data files, there are tools that we use to upload that and different methods based on your internet connection and computers and whatnot to make that happen as quickly and efficiently as possible with minimal disruption to your team. But if you're moving between two accounts and they're both online, if the data is already stored online, then you can actually do that cloud to cloud. And so the best thing to do if you're interested in any migration is to get a free consultation from our team. Jump on one of the links below this video and they'll be able to take a look at your individual scenario and give you some options for a migration plan. We have seen and done it all. We've seen every kind of migration from every kind of business. We've pulled data out of Zoho Mail. We've pulled data out of BlackBerry servers in the old days. We've pulled data out of Mac, Apple enterprise servers. Seen and done it all. So if you've got a migration project you need some help with, just let us know. We'll be happy to help. Okay, and a little extra comment. If I transfer the mail from the first email to the second, will it still be in the first one, and can I delete it from the first? That depends on who is going to be using the mailbox before and after, and what the migration methodology is. For the most part, when you move data across, typically a copy of the old data will remain where it is. And so then, yes, once the data has been verified to have been moved across, it can be deleted from the source. But depending on if we're also moving Google Drive data or any other data, there'll be different considerations for that. Okay, I think we're getting close to our final questions. All right. So Eric asks, one thing in favor of Office versus Workspace is that Workspace has still not introduced dark mode for its web apps. The white screen hurts my eyes, yet they've done it for Keep, YouTube, and Google Search. Why haven't they done it for Google Workspace? And you know what? This is a bloody good question. I wish they have. The suggestion here is that Google are not developing their tools or Google are not putting enough effort into Google Workspace. And I will say that Google are putting a hell of a lot of effort into Google Workspace, because Google Cloud and Google Workspace, which is an organization that sits under Google Cloud, is very, very important to Google. They're often accused of not updating the apps enough and not putting enough development and engineering energy into developing Google Workspace as a product itself. And I think that's more about Google's dysfunction as a large, growing business with lots of different priorities than it is about Google giving up on the product or going cold on their love for the product of Google Workspace. This is my opinion. What I do know about Google is that my last count was, I think, an $80 billion a year advertising business. It's probably in the hundreds now. And that's wonderful for them, but they also have threats of competition. Lots of money and spend is going to other players in the market, and they have plenty of other ways that the business has threats. And so Google are looking to build out their revenue sources and the value of their business through other means, like their self-driving cars, like their cloud infrastructure, like Google Workspace, and other enterprise tools that allow businesses to get work done. Now, that's not to say anything of all of their moonshots and other areas of the business as well. So it's really important for Google to build revenue in Google Workspace and in the Google Cloud ecosystem. And so therefore, they're putting plenty of energy into developing the apps. And I do know that for sure, because I've literally met the project managers who are developing those apps when I've spent time at Google. Here's the thing. Each project manager within Google Workspace will report to a chief of product, and that person kind of sits over everything. But the individual products will actually have individual product managers. There will be a Google Drive product manager, a Google Calendar product manager, a Gmail product manager. And the timelines for implementing something like dark mode across those apps may actually be different, because they most likely fall to those individual product managers. Now, Google may have changed their structure over the years. Google may or may not even have this as a priority. I don't know for sure. But what I do know is that it will likely come at some point in the future. But like everything Google, unfortunately, it's a bit hard to say exactly when that will be. Okay, we have some more questions coming through. Let me take those. Okay, Loving all the live questions, guys. I'm just so glad that you have all joined live. So thank you for being here on the live. It makes it much more entertaining and engaging for me. And we're going to start scheduling. We're going to start scheduling these too. So I'm going to pick a time. I think Wednesday mornings Australian time, which will capture the US crowd. I'm sorry for those of you that are in Europe, but maybe we'll even alternate them or something like that, so we can do some more lives. But we'll have them scheduled so you'll know when they'll be on, and you can get yourself prepared with your questions. But if you haven't already, just make sure you're following me on socials. You can just go to moriarty.co, my surname, and that should be in the tagline there. And drop me a message on Instagram, say hi and connect. I'm there most of the time, and would love to know any questions you have, and I'll do my best to put them in an upcoming stream. Okay, so we have a question from Classic Connections. Would you suggest a startup that wants to be national, remote, and scalable to use Google Sites for their public-facing page? We have zero capital. Great question. I would say that Google Sites is not necessarily the most powerful content management system for a public-facing website. It can look, let's say, a little amateur in its design styling. However, if you're a startup and right now you have zero capital, it's a great place to start. It ranks well, it's built well, it's easy to use, it's easy to build out. And if you've got nothing right now, it is better than nothing. If you've got a tiny bit to spend a little bit of money on Wix or Squarespace or WordPress, you're going to get 10x the results because they're much more versatile as a platform. Although, having started and launched a number of businesses and having advised thousands and thousands and thousands of business owners, including early stage startups, if this is something that you're just getting off the ground and you just need to get something up so then you can focus on validating the business idea, building revenue, getting money in the door, then Google Sites is going to be great. I would say just get it out the door. Done is better than perfect. And so Google Sites might be a good fit for that. It also integrates nicely with your Google My Business page, now accessible through Google Maps. And that's a great way to kind of have the two working nicely together. And it will probably give you a good initial ranking in Google search results. Many digital marketers, I'm sure, would say this would only be a very, very temporary solution. And I agree with that sentiment. But if you need something done today, Google Sites is probably a good place to start. Okay. Next question here from Jail. Thanks for joining. Do you have any recommendations for tools and applications that can help me sync data from our Google Shared Drives to a local server? We're currently working solely off Google Drive. Look, my recommendation would be, I challenge you on why you might want to do that. The most basic way of doing that would be to set up something like a headless Mac or a headless NAS drive and just tick the available offline box so it all gets downloaded to that machine. And then everyone, sets up a local share to that machine, and then it's only kind of downloaded once in your office, right? But we're really moving away from that style of working these days because most countries, most economies have pretty decent internet connections. Most businesses now can get a fiber connection. And even if you've got 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 people in one office, what was called Google File Stream is now just called Google Drive. It's all been wrapped up into Google Drive. Is pretty darn efficient with its use of uploading and downloading bandwidth constraints. But if you are in a location or an economy or just a particular suburb or office that doesn't have a great internet connection, you may consider that. There are certain NAS drives, which are locally attached storage, network attached storage, which will allow you to synchronize some files from Google Drive down there. The challenge is, and this is why I try and avoid them, is anytime you add some kind of third-party synchronization app or third-party synchronization service, you include the potential risk that there may be double ups and synchronization conflicts. The sync might stop working, and so you might think it's being backed up, but it's not actually being backed up. You can then end up with people working on different versions of the same file, and it's the kind of thing where it turns into a really, really big mess before someone realizes, and then you have a oh shoot moment. And I'd rather have ahas than oh shoots in life. And so for me, my strong recommendation is to just stick with the Google Drive app. Maybe be smart about when you're downloading the files. If you need to put files into a particular job folder, and only download the active jobs down to your computer, and then you've got those accessible locally on your machine. And then you can avoid having to have a shared network resource for the office. That would be my strong recommendation. Okay, let's see here. Cool. All right, wonderful. Thank you very much for the thanks for the comments. Classic Connections. Thank you. Awesome. All right. What have we got next here? I can't believe we still have more questions. There are a lot more questions. Okay. It's nearly 1 a.m. here. Okay, we have a question from Marcus. One area where we struggle with Microsoft Word instead of Docs is for tracking changes when we're working with people outside our own organization who have not gone Google, and when you collaborate on a commercial agreement, it's still pretty de facto to use Microsoft Word to track the changes. Are there any thoughts on how to handle this differently? Marcus, I can tell you this is something that bugs me as well. We have a legal firm that we work with who are amazing partners to us, but they insist on using Microsoft. And that's because for most law firms, their precedents and their automated letters and their tracking and everything all happens in the Microsoft suite. And then they send a document to us and we try and open it in Google Drive. We convert it to Google Docs. It will keep the changes in there. It will actually show up as comments, which is pretty useful inside a Google Doc. But I can't make suggested changes myself and then send it back and have them see it. Now, I've tried the policy where I force them to use Google Docs and force them to, see my comments and changes in the way that I want to work. And after a period of time, it stopped working. And what I had to do was put down the part of me that was a purist and actually say, okay, you know what, I surrender, do it your way. And I just had to do meetings and talk to my lawyers and have them make the changes rather than trying to work with Microsoft Documents in the actual Google Drive. Let me say this, it does work okay. It's just messy. I don't have an amazing solution for it just yet. If I do have one, I'll put a video up on the channel or post it to my Instagram stories and let people know that I've found the solution, but I have not yet. If you are watching this video and you do have some solutions, please drop it down below. How can we get track changes to work nicely so we're not, forever converting files and going back and forward with document formats? Right now, Google do a pretty good job inside of Google Drive, but it still tends to drop some things from time to time, and it's a bit frustrating. Google engineers, if you're listening to this, this is a big challenge for the legal industry. This is something that would be really great to help anyone who is working with their lawyers get more done inside of Google Workspace. So would really love to have your team focus on this, please. please make it work. Make it easy. All right, we're going to go to our next question here. Rosie asks, wondering if a G Suite admin can see my web activity if it's paused or if it's empty. Is it a way for them to view it regardless? I will say this. If you are using a Google Workspace account and that is under a domain that somebody else controls, it could be an education domain if you're using it at a school, could be a work domain if you're using it at a workplace. If you're in a not-for-profit organization of some sort, you may also be there as well. Anything you do inside your Google Workspace account, expect that an administrator can and will be able to access that at some point in time. Now, the basic level of information availability that someone has as an administrator is using something like Google Vault, which tracks your emails and your documents and also your chats as well. In a big vault, even if you delete them, and if they've enabled Google Vault for your domain, what that means is they have a searchable database of every piece of communication and every file available inside your account without you even knowing that someone is accessing it. That's the basic level. The next level up is someone can always reset your password and access your account and then go through your history. So if you've cleared out your history, sure, there's probably a low chance that someone's going to be able to access that. But you don't necessarily know when someone is going to change your password and then jump straight into your account. So just expect that anything that you're doing inside a Google Workspace account that is controlled by someone else is potentially accessible by someone else. All right, Good question, though. Cool. All right. So I have a question here from Taylor. And Taylor asks, and I believe this is referring to Chromebooks or Google Drive. No, it's referring to Google Drive. Taylor's asking a question about Google Drive. If there's a sudden power failure, if there's a disruption, can I choose to keep certain files or folders with Google Drive synchronized the old way? And by synchronized the old way, they mean, can I keep them available offline? And this person, Taylor, is worried that it's going to delete folders on her Google Drive if there's no backup happening. Now, I can't say for sure that there isn't a problem with this person's computer, but what I can say for sure is that Google Drive is designed to work both online and also offline as well. So what was formerly called Google File Stream is now just called the Google Drive app. If you install that on your Mac or your Windows PC, you will get access to Google Drive, and it will synchronize files between online and offline. Now, it does this intelligently, so it doesn't download the whole of your Google Drive down to your computer. It's just going to download the files that you're using, and it's going to keep a cached copy locally on your computer of files that you frequently use or files that it thinks that you might going to be using soon. The other thing that you can do, though, is you can enable offline working for your files as well. And so offline working is going to let you choose certain files or certain folders to be available offline. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like so you know how to switch on offline files. It's pretty straightforward. And if you're on a Mac or a PC, it's going to look a tiny bit different to this. I'm actually on a Chromebook. And so on my Chromebook, it's got a pretty distinctive file browser, which will look a bit different, but that's okay. Effectively, you're first going to go to your Google Drive, and I've got my Drive here. I've got a demo folder here, and if I decide that I want to have this folder available offline, I right-click and I click onto Available Offline. And it's going to put a little tick box there, and it's going to start downloading any content inside that folder offline. Anything I add to it will stay offline. Anything that's added online on the the browser version of Google Drive is then going to be synchronized down to my computer as well. Now, if the internet connection is severed or something goes wrong with that for some reason, it's going to then just resynchronize when you connect back up to the internet again. It's all pretty simple and straightforward, but that is going to keep that machine updated for that particular folder. And based on the amount of bandwidth that you have and the amount of space you have on your computer, you can actually download quite a lot if you need to. Now, when you're working with a Google document, so that might be a Google Doc, a Google Sheet, a Google Slides presentation, what Google will do is it will put a link to that offline file down on your local computer, and it will actually synchronize the data using Google Chrome. So if you want to work with one of the Google Docs offline in the document format of Google, then you can actually work offline and it will save that to your computer. Obviously, I can't demonstrate that, what working offline looks like right now, but you will actually see when you're working with an individual spreadsheet that it is available for offline use. So right now, this says all changes are saved to Drive, but if I was to sever this internet connection, then it would actually update here and let me know that it was saved offline anytime I'm making changes offline. There we go. Thank you very much for that question. Okay, so we have another question here from Brahmadi. Pete, your videos are really educative. Just by the way, I love compliments. So anytime you're commenting, love a good compliment. Thank you. I'm handling multiple projects remotely in morning hours. We're all using Google Chat, but we're getting mixed up with different projects in different chats, different spaces. If something's 3 months old in a PDF format, it's getting lost. What should we do here? And I think there may be a little bit of a misunderstanding in how you're using chat here. And I think you might be trying to do a little bit too much with chat. My recommendation for chat is that you imagine chat is like walking up to somebody's cubicle in an office and knocking on the door and saying, "Hey, are you available right now?" Think about chat as an interruption station. You're basically going to be barging in on someone else inside the business. And so when you do that, you're not only interrupting them, but you're basically saying, "Hey, what I've got for you is more important than what you're working on right now." Now, that can work fine if you've got a small team of like 2 or 3 people, and you're either a startup or an early stage business, and everyone's just like energy, 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 and you're all chatting to each other all day long. That's fine. But when you get to the stage of needing to actually do a bit more deep work, and as it sounds like here, you've got multiple projects running at the same time, and you've got multiple files for those projects, chat really isn't the most appropriate app for project management, or for managing progression of tasks, or for managing a system that has multiple steps, or for delegating things to team members. Because it's got a couple of little tasky features in there which are good for the absolute basics. But when you start running projects on a team with more than 3 people, and you have either dependencies, or you want to work on a Gantt chart, or you have multiple tasks and subtasks attached to those tasks, or you want some kind of reporting in there, that's where chat is just not really appropriate as a tool at all. And we actually ran a poll on our YouTube account recently, and I asked people, hey, who actually uses the tasks feature inside Google Chat for their tasks? And a few people said that they use it for their personal, shopping lists and a few real basic things in there. But most business owners who were scaling up past an absolute, early launch phase business said that they were using some kind of other tool for managing tasks and projects in the business. So that might be Asana, it might be Trello, it might be ClickUp, it might be Basecamp, it might be Monday.com. There's a million different options for different project management and shared task management apps. Now, obviously, they became very popular during the pandemic because it's very important for people to be able to work effectively remotely, and these tools allow you and your teams to be able to do that. Now, our recommendation is Asana. We've implemented it in literally hundreds of businesses. I'd say probably about 500 or 600 businesses I'm responsible for putting Asana into. We've now been awarded a global partner for Asana, which is amazing. And so, we're able to sell Asana licenses and give you discounts and all other cool things as well. And we also provide professional services as well. So if you're interested in a professional implementation, we run hundreds of projects concurrently across a business that does $6.5 million a year in revenue and 50 employees and multiple companies now that I sit as chair over, all through Asana. It is a phenomenally powerful piece of technology, and I can show you right now in my browser all of my content that I've got lined up to go onto the channel sits in Asana, and I've got all of the questions here that I'm reading through sitting in an Asana task. Asana literally runs our whole business. Now, that's my recommendation. If you want to learn more about that, head to the channel. We've got plenty of videos on Asana about why we think it's a great fit for your business. But most importantly, to answer the question that's here, Brahmadi, thank you very much for asking it. My recommendation would be to just use chat for the basics of chatting to your team and not try and turn it too much into a file storage repository or a project management app. I think you're using the wrong tool for the job there, and I think that's why you're getting a bit stuck. But thanks for the question. That's a good one. Okay, cool. All right. Next up, Joseph has said, thank you for the tutorial. We have 3 Chromebooks. I'd like to know, how can I share my iCloud email address with my Gmail account in my Chromebook? I can't find the right YouTube guide for it. Now, there's 2 ways of sharing your iCloud email into your Google account. You can either go into your iCloud settings and you can forward your mail using the forwarding feature, and you can just forward it all into your Gmail account. That will work. The second way of doing it is setting up a mailbox retrieval inside your Gmail. Now, I haven't done this in many, many years, but I'll give you a little bit of a look-see in what that looks like. So if you open up your Gmail and you go to See All Settings on the right-hand side here, you want to go to Forwarding and pop IMAP, and then you want to create a pop download. You want to create a pop download retrieval thing. It's been a while since I've done this, like probably about 10 years. And so, yeah, you click one of these buttons and you can set it to download your iCloud mail. Now, you'll probably need to find the instructions and whatnot to get that working. If that's the kind of thing where you're not super tech savvy and it's going to be hard for you to do that yourself, our team will be very happy to help out with that. you can either jump onto our concierge membership, or we also have like a one-time fix it, just pay one fee and our team will just kind of do it for you, one ticket with no ongoing commitment. If you're interested in that, jump on one of the links below this video or on any of our channel links on the channel homepage, and our team will be very happy to help you get your email connected. Okay. We have a question from Lucas. I've covered that. No, I'm going to skip that. Okay. We have a question from Steve. I had a Google Meet chat that is critical to a criminal investigation. Is it possible to retrieve that meet? It was not recorded by me. It may be recorded by the other party. That's a good question, Steve. If you're using Google Meet and you've made any recordings of meetings, the recording goes into the person's Google Drive who initiated the meeting. So the organizer of the meeting is the person who gets the recording. However, other participants who have been invited to a meeting will also typically get a copy of that meeting recording as well. So if you have been to a meeting and that meeting was actually recorded, you can actually potentially go into your Google Calendar, find the meeting, and then inside the meeting actually access the recording. So I'm going to go into my Google Calendar here, and I'm going to open up a meeting that I went to recently that I know was recorded. So Leah was the organizer inside our business. You can see here she's got the little organizer tag. And then there's a few other people who attended. And you can see here, attached to the meeting is the recording. So if I click on that recording, it's going to open up in Google Drive. And basically, anybody who is a attendee of that meeting is automatically going to get read-only access to the recording. Now, obviously, if this is some kind of criminal or legal issue or something like that, it might be a bit hard to retrieve that, or the person might have removed the sharing from you. If so, you may be out of luck. That method may not work. But if it was not recorded by you, it's probably going to be in somebody else's drive. The other place you can check if you just want to look for it is to actually go into your Gmail and to search for Meet recordings, because you actually get a notification each time a Google meeting is recorded. So if I search for Meet recording, that should show up all of the email notifications. Here we go. So Meet recording status. You can see here there's a nominated email address that they are all coming from, meet-recordings-no-reply@google.com. So you can probably just search for that email address inside your email and maybe see if you can find it there. Best of luck, and I hope you can find what you're looking for. All right, cool. We have a question here. Will Meet be building the admin ability to record from mobile? I can wait for the next live if needed. No, that's okay. Keep the questions rolling if you're on the live. I can only imagine that Google will give us the option soon to allow us to initiate a recording from mobile. It's a pain in the butt that they haven't so far. But I guess we will see. We will see. Okay. But good question. Thank you. All right. I think we are down to our last couple of questions. Yes, we are. Okay, cool. I got a question here from Daniela. How do I block a person from texting me in Google Chat? This is going to be the easiest one I've ever done. We're going to go into our Google Chat. We're going to open up somebody's profile. We're going to click the little three buttons next to them, and we're going to click block or block and report. Now, I'm not going to click on that right now on Adrian's account because he's the CEO of one of the companies that I chair, and I think he would find that a little bit odd that I've blocked him. But that's where you go to block that person, and you can choose to record them as well if you wish. Okay. We have a question here from DJ. What is your recommendation for a solution for clients that only use Teams or only use Zoom? I've covered this in another video in another section. The challenge is that if you have someone who you're working with regularly, you may be able to convince them, but some people can still kind of be stuck in their ways, with what they want to use. My recommendation would be to have a chat with any of your contractors, suppliers, or anyone that you're working with about the technology that you're using inside your business and why you think it's a good idea to be using that technology, and what benefits they may be able to get from that. For example, if you are an accountant and maybe you're a psychologist or you're a coach or someone, and you're a leadership facilitator, and you're working with clients, and you say to them, hey, you know what? We love using Google Meet inside our company, and here's the benefits of using Google Meet when you interact with us. When you have a coaching session, let's use this as an example, or you have a consultation if you're the accountant, we're going to automatically record that. It's automatically going to pop into Google Drive, and it's going to be attached to the meeting invite of every meeting that we have. And so if you need to find an old recording, you can just go to that meeting and click the button and you'll have the recording. Rather than digging through Zoom where you may have lost it, or it may not have rendered in time, or your computer crashed, or you shut the lid on your computer so it never rendered, those recordings tend to get lost. Google Meet recordings tend to remain safe. And so that would be one way of approaching that, is to have a conversation around, okay, look, this is the reason why we recommend that this is a good idea. All right, cool. Okay. Yes, they do listen to me. Yes. You can always enforce it. Okay, so we have a question here from our membership. This is actually from our support group. So if you're interested in joining our free support group for Google Workspace, just jump onto any of the links on our channel and you can join our Workspace group. It's a free group where our community help each other out answering questions. I obviously can't answer every single one of the questions and the comments, although I would love to as much as possible. But this is one from the group. So Antoine, thank you for thank you for asking. So there is a licensed user currently set up in their account, and they want to move that to a collaborative group email. Now, I've covered group emails before. I did a recent video that went up on the channel on managing shared mailboxes and different options for using a collaborative mailbox versus a distribution group versus a shared mailbox. Now, this person wants to move a license or an email address probably between those. Now, there's no magic button that you can press that turns a user into a distribution group or turns a distribution group back into a user. So you need to actually do this manually. Now, pretty simple process. You just need to make sure you do it quickly, because when you do this, you don't want to lose any email. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the first user, so the licensed user account, and you're going to rename them. So if their name is Peter, I would probably rename them to something like peter-old@ourcompany.com. Now, when you rename that user, what it's going to do is it's actually going to create an alias under that user as well. And it probably makes sense that I show you exactly what this looks like, so we can do it properly, okay? So let's open up my Google admin here. I'm going to create a test. I'm going to create a test user, and we'll use the test user here. Cool. Great. So we'll set up tester. And this is going to be the person that we move from a licensed user over to a distribution group. So where's my test user? I think I misspelt it, but I'm sure we can find them. No, they're not here. Okay. Try a refresh. See if they come back. There's multiple pages. Okay, we have more than 50 accounts, I learnt today. Okay, here they are. All right, so we've got tester at itgenius.com, and this, if we imagine, is the licensed user. We're going to update the user, and I'm going to call them tester-old. That's the first step. Now, it says here you can still use tester at itGenius. That's actually still going to work, which is that's part of the challenge here. because what we actually now need to do is we need to clear out that alias because we need to free up the email address. So we're going to click onto user information, and then we're going to go to alternative email addresses, and we're going to delete tester, which was the original one. They're going to still have tester-alt, which is the one we renamed them to, but they're no longer going to have tester. And then when we go to our groups and we go and create a group, we can use their email address. And we can then therefore set up our distribution group. So there you go. That is the methodology that you need to create or switch a user into a distribution group. And I hope that helps. All right. That is all the questions that I have. And so I'm going to go ahead and check. Wonderful. So Stevie has asked, we'll keep this as part of this video. Does tester-old still have access to all their old emails and files? Yes, that's the same user. So while we still have that, user there, while we still have an active account for them, it'll be the same password. Everything will be exactly the same. We've just changed their email address. So they just have to, when they go to a browser, log in with the new email address, but it'll be same password and same everything else. And then that email address we've now detached, and the tester email address we've detached, and we've moved that over. Okay, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for joining the live stream. If you've joined the live stream, if you are joining on the replay, please put down a hashtag repeat in the comments and make sure you say hi. Would love to have you here. I'm just going to open up my little kind of final notes. If you are brand new to the channel, please make sure you give us a thumbs up. Give us a subscribe. Would love to have you, join our community, join our channel. I've given you some options for doing that if you do want to do that. We have a pretty thriving community now, actually. We've got nearly 20,000 people who subscribe to the YouTube channel. My number one job in this business right now is providing content to you who are in our community. I semi-retired from my business 6 years ago, and now we're still scaling a global organization, but my passion is helping small business owners to build more successful companies. And so systemize, organize, and scale using Google Workspace, using other technology tools. I want to help small business owners all over the world play a bigger game. And so, keep your questions coming. Thanks very much for those that joined the live and for those that have asked questions and put comments on all of our videos over the years. Thank you, and I'm looking forward to doing many more of these. So if you're brand new to our channel and you're wondering how we might be able to help, number one, jump on the link down below and join our free group, which is a free community resource group. You can jump in there and chat to other business owners who are using Google Workspace. Plenty of people in there are keen to help you out. If you are interested in a free account audit for your Google Workspace account, our team are available for that. And so they'll do a bit of a check of your account, do a bit of an audit of your IT strategy, go through our growth roadmap with you. If you want someone to actually go and comb through your account with a fine-tooth comb, we have a full audit of your account. If you're interested in taking us up on that, a couple $100, and we'll check out your Workspace account. We literally sit over thousands and thousands of Workspace accounts for different businesses, right across the globe. And so we're pretty good at auditing and sussing things out if there's something there. Number three, if you would like to do business with us, the best way to do that is to transfer your billing. And that is also on the links page under every video and on our channel page. It's called the Transfer In offer. Transfer your billing to us, costs you nothing, but you get a bunch of goodies. You get access to Genius Academy, which has all of my webinars, all of my professional trainings, all the stuff we used to charge thousands of dollars a year to access, now available for free. So you get my Inbox Zero course, you get our remote work playbook. We did an 8-week course on running our company remotely. We were running our business remotely for 5 years before COVID hit. 50 employees, all running full-time from home, multi-million-dollar business, scaled operation, founder retired, running like a tight machine, 98.5% rolling 90 days customer service satisfaction. Like, we know how to run a successful, highly profitable business, and we do that all from home, completely remotely. And so in that 8-week course, we opened up on exactly how we run the business, how we use the Rockefeller habits, how we use all of our technology tools ingrained in our business strategy and technology strategy. So if you want to know how we recruit amazing team, primarily in the Philippines, and have built an international team and a very scalable company. That's all in Genius Academy as well. All you have to do, transfer your billing to us. Costs you nothing extra, and maybe you're leaving at a discount too. So jump onto the transfer in offer on the links page. And number 4, if you need help with something right now, if you want to get more out of your workspace investment, if you need help fixing something that's broken, if you want us to clean up your DNS records because they're not perfect, if you want us to clean up your Google Drive because it's a mess, if you want us to set the right permissions and setting structures, if you want us to set up organizational units and policies for Chrome, if you want to roll out Chromebooks, if you want to set up Google Meet hardware, if you want to build a dashboard inside Google Data Studio and have all of your analytics and your Google ads and your Facebook data and your accounting data all come into one amazing, beautiful dashboard with all the graphs you can dream of. That's all stuff that we do under our concierge program. So if you jump on a concierge, we support all of these apps, making them all run swimmingly together for small business owners. It's just an amazing suite of apps. And we make them all, just run beautifully together. We've got an amazing team. As you can see here, over 300 5-star reviews on our Google page. We've been doing this a long time. I've been consulting since I was 15 years old. We've built a pretty cool business, and I'm just looking to help more business owners all over the world. We have resources now handling US time zone. We do not have European time zone yet, but it is coming. And so if you're in the US, jump straight on with our team and let us know. If you're in the UK, we do have people working until early evening Australian time, which will catch your morning, or most other places in Europe we can cover as well. Thanks for joining the live if you're on the live, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.